All right, greetings. So this is some archive footage from 1967. It's a Black Panther protest at the California State Capitol. This it includes an interview of the controversial and dichotomous figure, like many of our past figures, Huey P. Newton. You can see here, Huey P. Newton. If you dive into his story, there's a lot of layers and a lot of complexity to his story. Like again, like all of our hidden figure or our past figures, Martin Luther King included. He has um, different layers to his story that have come out over the years that, aside from any judgment, just shed light on the man. But anyway, not to get off topic, Huey P. Newton and Black Panthers, of course, they made their mark for a number of reasons, um, and they are a group that was a time that was worth being looked at, that was documented, and is worth preserving the legacy and the story of, I believe. So this is some rare footage, and I'm going to just let it play. Some of it has no audio. Like you'll see interviews where there's no audio, so I'm just gonna let some music play over that. And other than that, I'm just gonna let it play as I found it. It looks like it was a bunch of just edited B-roll that was on the newsroom cutting floor, editing floor. So I'm gonna just let it play as I found it. And peace and blessings.
Wait a minute. Now, wait a minute.
Right in the office.
Wait a minute.
Oh, he was under arrest.
Am I under arrest? Am I under arrest?
Place him under arrest. Go ahead, brother.
Am I under arrest? Am I? Take your hands off me if I'm not under arrest.
Am I under
I'm
arrest?
telling you to take your hands off me.
Is he
Take
under
your
arrest?
hands off me. Oh, I'm telling you, take.
How many you got? Just follow me.
Second off.
What?
What you doing, man? Wait a minute, officer.
The people in this court and the people in the legislature have not been acting like human beings. They put trumped up charges of conspiracy and felonies on everyone who went in to exercise a constitutional right and said they had no right to bear arms in a public place. The California Penal Code section 12020 through 12027 and also the Second Amendment of the Constitution guarantees the citizen a right to bear arms on public property. And the legislature, I talked to Morford last night, and he said the legislature has made certain rules that are superior to the United States Constitution and also superior to the statutory law of California, and that is that they made a rule that no one could walk on their property with a weapon. I'm saying this is a bold contradiction, and also Morford is alive.
Now, everything yesterday.
Ain't no sawed off. That's a ride shotgun just like yours.
Exactly like
But why is yours?
And the big stick. Black people have begged, prayed, petitioned for it. And what are you doing removing people's property without due
Now, if I'm
process
under
of
arrest,
law?
if I'm under arrest, I'll come. If I'm
Wait,
not,
wait,
don't put
wait.
your hands on me.
Is this the way the racist government works? Don't let a man exercise his constitutional rights?
If my sweater's ripped, you will get.
I'd like to make a statement now with this respect. Statement of the Black Panther Party for self-defense. on the Mulford Act now pending before the California legislature. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense calls upon the American people in general and the black people in particular to take full note of the racist California legislature, which is now considering legislation aimed at keeping the black people disarmed and powerless at the very same time that racist police agencies throughout the country are intensifying the terror, brutality, murder, and repression of black people. At the same time that the American government is waging a racist war of genocide in Vietnam, the concentration camps in which Japanese Americans were interned during World War II are being renovated and expanded. Since America has historically reserved the most barbaric treatment for non-white people, we are forced to conclude that these concentration camps are being prepared for black people who are determined to gain their freedom by any means necessary. The enslavement of black people from the very beginning of this country, the genocide practiced on the American Indians, and the confining of the survivors on reservations, the savage lynching of thousands of black men and women, the dropping of atomic bombs on the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and now the cowardly massacre in Vietnam. All the power structure of America has policy, repression, genocide.
Well, I think it's a ridiculous way to try and solve the problems that have to be solved among people of goodwill, and there's certainly nothing that can be done in the line of goodwill when Americans have guns with even the implied idea that those guns might be directed against other Americans. But I would think that some of the bills that have been suggested, such as not carrying a loaded weapon on a city street or in town, this might certainly be a good one. There is absolutely no reason why out on the street today civilians should be carrying a loaded weapon.
I just thought they needed service, you know, gas, have their windows cleaned and such, but then they started getting out with their guns and had me a little bit puzzled. I didn't want to approach them. So one of them walked up to me and asked if he can have $2 worth of gas in his Pontiac over here. So I went ahead and put the gas in, and I noticed the guns were loaded, and they were just standing around. They didn't say anything. They just started, you know, tending to their windows and checking the oil. Then I looked across the street and I saw one of the city police coming across with his motorcycle, and he had his eye on him. And it just seemed like everything broke loose. This place was swarming with city cops.
Ours is legal.
Yeah, well, that's legal too. If yours is legal, I don't see how y'all can be no better than us.
You don't know the Constitution, right?
Not like this. Sure we do. We're well aware of the Constitution.
You have no right to take my gun away from me. You breaking the Constitution like. Right. No, that's all. If he's breaking the law, I'm going to arrest him. I would like to have a gun right.
this the pamphlet you're talking about? The pamphlet says that the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense calls on the American people in general to take careful note of the racist California legislature. Why do you believe the legislature is racist?
Don't you know? You're a part of it, and you're obviously, it's a white system. It's not obviously where we at. So.
What do you mean?
Well, just read the pamphlet and you'll see what we mean.
You say to read your pamphlet. This is the pamphlet that the man presented me with. It's called A Statement of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense on the Mulford Act, now pending before the California legislature. The Mulford Act would control the use of arms, especially loaded weapons, and would prohibit them. These men seem to have loaded weapons with them. The statement seems to indicate that these people feel that the black people have been enslaved throughout most of their lives, that the white society is responsible for this, and then they go on to say the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense believes that the time has come for black people to arm themselves against this terror, the terror of the white people presumably, before it is too late, and the pending Mulford Act brings the hour of doom one step nearer. Do you believe everything that's in that pamphlet?
The pamphlet speaks for itself.
Come on, your name. Come on, your name. All right, I'm not expecting. All right, get up here. Get over there.
All right, don't let him go behind you.
Tim Holloway, you were outside when the group came up. What did you see out there?
I was called down from the upper floors of the Capitol and went to the west entrance of the Capitol, and I saw a group of approximately 4 male Negroes, all carrying weapons of one sort or another, with a smaller group behind them. I stopped them as they came up the front steps of the Capitol, and I was handed a pamphlet by one of the members of the group. They had a group of pamphlets which stated in effect that they were members of the Black Panthers for Defense, and then it contained a group of charges regarding racism, racist legislature, police brutality, the entire inflammatory type of propaganda. And I read that. They waited. They were, at that time, quiet, menacing with their revolvers, but they didn't do anything that was actually over it. And after reading their pamphlet, I explained to them that they did have a right to bear arms, that as long as they behaved themselves, the state police would protect them, and then they entered the building. I entered the building also and came to the state police office, and there were a group, highly inflamed, demanding that their weapons be returned to them. I then learned from some of the officers that a group had invaded, so to speak, the floor of the assembly, and our officers had removed them from the floor of the assembly, brought them to the state police headquarters here, and as a matter of safety, unloaded the weapons. I then returned the weapon and the shells, and the group walked out of the office and left the Capitol.
Is there any law against carrying a loaded weapon into the assembly chamber, for instance?
No, that is one of the purposes of the Mulford bill, to make a misdemeanor to carry a loaded weapon. In the back of my mind, no. I believe that these people are well trained, that they know what they're doing, they know exactly how far to go. I believe that they were perhaps a little more vehement inside the police office than they might have been outside, because here they knew they were safe, nobody was going to bother them, and I believe it was a well-organized operation.
Same thing. You'd be in the same position. They would be legally entitled to come into the
Basically,
Capitol.
we would be in the same position until they disturbed the peace, or in the event they again committed a misdemeanor, an assault, then they would be arrested for the assault, but not for carrying the weapon.
What kind of safety precautions are you going to take when this Mulford bill comes up?
As always, we've had to depend on the other law enforcement agencies in the area, and we have received assurances of assistance from the Sacramento Police Department. We're beefing up our manpower on the scene.
Do you expect any trouble there?
No, I don't. Especially since they're all in the bucket. But I'll tell you one thing, I was scared. Anytime a guy comes up with a
I was standing by the gate. As a rule, the fellas that come through, if they have a card, we let them in. Otherwise, we don't. But this bunch came just rushing through. No stopping at all. They knocked me away from the gate altogether.
Did it knock you down?
Yes, sir.
And what happened then?
Well, they went on into the chamber.
Speaker Pro Tem asked me to clear the floor in the rear, and I went to the rear with all the cameramen were there from the news media, and told the people to leave. They had no right to be in there, and they indicated their constitutional right was being violated. And under our rules and regulations of the assembly, you're only permitted in the downstairs part of the assembly with a guest pass from a member, which they did not have.
I understand they were removed from the chamber. Did you do this alone, or how many men helped you?
Well, there was a couple of my men and one of the state policemen.
What was your reaction and the reaction of the members of the assembly at that time?
Well, I think it was one of complete surprise. We just couldn't realize what was going on, and I didn't really know until after they had been removed why they were there. They're there primarily, or they were there this morning, I guess, to protest a bill that Mr. Mulford from Alameda County is having before the Criminal Procedure Committee this afternoon. As you know, they are now being booked under Section 9051 of the Government Code, and evidently the district attorney here in Sacramento states that they violated the law by entering the chambers while the assembly was in session.